We have to get somebody to run. We need somebody who's going to stand up. And that's when the community started looking at me and they're like, Emily, it's you. You run. And I looked and was like, I can't run. I was like, I'm not an attorney. And then after a while, I started thinking about it. And it was because I did have that imposter syndrome.
How could you not?
Exactly. You want me to run and be your elected official? And it was interesting because after a while, I sat down and thought about it, and I have been paid less than a man for the same position.
Gloria Steinem once said, "We will never solve the feminization of power until we solve the masculinity of wealth." Barbara Provost and Maggie Nielsen are the team at Purse Strings that will help you navigate the ins and outs of financial independence so that you can be financially fearless. This is Women in Money, the shit we don't talk about.
All right. Today, I'm very excited about our guest. I met her through a networking event at Innovate Her KC in Kansas City, Missouri, for those who are not as familiar. But I met Emily Weber, and I'm so excited to have her on the show today. So, Emily, before we dive in, can you share a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Yeah, definitely. So I'm Emily Weber. I am the state representative for District 24 here in Missouri. That is in Kansas City. It's the Midtown downtown area of Kansas City. So if you've ever been to any of the things, you most likely have visited my district. Now in my 6th year as a state rep. So that is 3 terms. Technically, we can serve 4 terms. So I'm in my last 3rd term right now. It's been a wild ride. You know, I ran during a pandemic. I was elected during the pandemic. I was also elected during the Stop Asian Hate. So that was going on as well. So it's been very interesting. I was raised in rural Kansas, so I have an agriculture background. Adopted from South Korea, so I did grow up with white parents. It's been, my upbringing has been interesting because I never knew that it would actually prepare me to come down to Jeff City and deal with a lot of the things that I think small towns have dealt with, and maybe some confusion as well and stereotypes. And then also having the ag background as an urban rep has always been a good one to actually have coming into the house.
Yeah. Are you going to run again? You get one more turn. Is it too early to ask?
Well, you'll probably be hearing in a few weeks here, maybe this week, if everything goes correctly. This is going to be my last time in the House. So this is my last year. I'm not going to seek re-election. I am running for Kansas City City Council 4th at large in 2027. So that's what I'll be doing.
I love it. Good for you, Emily.
Thanks.
And so I'm excited to dive into all of this. You didn't come from a traditional political background. I think your degree was in marketing. Is that correct?
Graphic design. I went to Kansas City Art Institute.
Right. And so how did you go from Art Institute to take us back to that moment where you're like, this isn't for me. Maybe I should go into politics?
Yeah, my upbringing, my parents always raised us kids to give back to the community, whatever that looked like. Now, granted, I'm a different party than my parents.
Now that's interesting.
Exactly. And when they taught us to give back to the community, I don't think they realized what I was going to give back to and the organizations I was volunteering for. But it was one of those where, I graduated from Kansas City Art Institute. That's what led me to fell in love with the Kansas City and just stayed after graduation because I wasn't going to move back to my small town. And really, I think it was probably, I used to say this, which is kind of naive looking back on it, but I used to say I wasn't political. I'd vote, but I wasn't really political. But then you look at all the organizations that I was donating my time to. I was a patient escort with Planned Parenthood for years. I volunteered my hours to organizations that I aligned with. And that used to be anything from animal rescues to reproductive health care to unions and environmental issues. It was basically everything in between. But I didn't really give my time back to candidates or things like that. I'd vote, but that was about it. And 2016 happened. The day after the 2016 election, I was in a grocery store and I was told to go back to where I came from, China Doll. So we knew that was going to happen. We knew that was the rhetoric. It was just more of a slap in the face because it was literally the next day. So that was my realization that voting wasn't enough, because I'm the type of person that if something like that happens, I get upset. I have to do something. I don't want to just sit back. I have to do something. So I started really focusing my time on trying to figure out what to do, because this was something that I've never done before. Who do I talk to? Who do I have conversations with? What am I supposed to do? And so I started really focusing on going to Greater Kansas City Women's Political Caucus. They were really big at the time, still are, but they were actually on Rachel Maddow because they had the largest meeting ever. But so I went to their meetings, I became a board member, I helped with Women Politics Foundation, and then really I started looking at candidates and what is it that I can do on the candidate side. And at that point, Sharice Davids on the Kansas side was running to flip a congressional seat, which she did. But I started helping her do all of the things, whatever that was, time, energy, events. It was a lot of things that we had to do. And I started from the start to the finish. I was there at her announcement when we found out she won and flipped that seat. So it was really that got me motivated to help not only folks on the Kansas side, but also folks on the Missouri side. And I just started door knocking for all the candidates that I believed in.
Boy, you really took action. It's so impressive. I mean, I get it. How are you going to make change if we don't do our fair share, right? Our part. So that's amazing. And, as we see in the political arena, there are more women coming in, and that's exciting, right? But, you don't need to have the right background, like a political science degree or connections. Do you think stepping in, it was complicated for you, or like, I didn't fit here, I'm a marketing degree, I'm an artist, type thing? Like, take us into what that feels like to step into that position.
Yeah, 100%. So, again, this is something that I never thought I would do. I never had an ambition to run for office. So when I knew that my state rep, Judy Morgan, was getting ready to be termed out, I started trying to figure out who was running for her seat, who could I help or get to know as being my next state rep. And nobody was chiming in at the time. So that was an issue. So I'm like, we have to get somebody to run. We need somebody who's going to stand up. And that's when the community started looking at me and they're like, Emily, it's you run. And I looked and was like, I can't run. Like, in my head, I told them, I was like, I'm not an attorney. I literally have a fancy art degree from Kansas City Art Institute, still paying off my student loans. I'm like, I never interned in the Capitol. Like, this isn't something that I'm looking at to do. And then after a while, I started thinking about it, and it was, because I did have that imposter syndrome.
How could you not?
Exactly. This is insane. Like, you people are crazy. You want me to run and be your elected official? And it was interesting because after a while, I sat down and thought about it, and I have been paid less than a man for the same position. I've been without health care. I've had to work multiple jobs because when I graduated from KCEI, it was when the market tanked and there wasn't any jobs for graphic designers. So you really had to kind of figure out how to make ends meet. I've used Planned Parenthood not for an abortion, but for just general health care because I did not have health insurance. At the same time, I looked at it, I'm a minority woman in the state of Missouri. And at the end of the day, I can come here and make laws and fight for good, solid legislation that helps people because I've lived it and I understand it. Then, of course, my ag background came into play when I won a 3-way primary during the pandemic with 69% of the votes. And it was one of those where my minority leader at the time, Crystal Quaid, called me and we were talking, and she kind of asked, like, what committees are you looking at and things like that. And I told her ag was one of them. She's like, I'll give it to you, but why? And I told her, I was like, I have an ag background. I'm a 4-H'er. I grew up in rural Kansas. My dad owned Weber Surge Dairy Equipment. I'm probably the only urban rep that can milk a cow by hand.
Wow. Put that on your resume.
I know. Like, I'm a minority woman who represents a very blue district in Midtown downtown. The agriculture community won't see me coming. The rural reps won't see me coming. And I hear time and time again that the rural reps don't understand the urban reps and vice versa. And I understand both. So it's been a really good way for me to come in and build alliances and bridges across the aisle. Granted, we don't agree on everything, and we never will, but we can have some tough conversations. And a lot of the rural reps have learned from either my experiences because they trust me, because a lot of this has to do with relationship building and trust. You know, we file bipartisan bills together. We have a bipartisan bill that I file with a retired veterinarian who, in my district, I have Uzazi Village for Black women, and it's Mama Hikima runs it, and it's one of those, or started it. I think she's officially retired now, but it's one of those. It's about doulas, and it's about, you know, they treat the Black women who come in there and really help with their pregnancies. And so we have a bipartisan bill together to help that. And, you know, Representative Hayden had no idea what doula is. Never been here, learned a lot and understood a lot, and came back and said, yeah, this is going to help. It's not only going to help them, it's also going to help rural areas as well. So it's been a way that we can work across the aisle and build alliances on a whole bunch of things. I mean, back to this, it's just been, you know, I would joke that my upbringing was just getting me ready for this position in Jefferson City.
That's fascinating. Yeah, you don't realize when you were milking that cow, the value is going to bring to you in other areas, right?
Exactly.
It's so interesting, and I love how you're in that room with so much energy. Like, who's going to do it? Who's going to do it? And you're like, okay, I guess it's me now with all the energy.
Back and you were there, right? You were in front.
I'm the chosen one.
I think when I first heard you talk, I've never thought about going into politics ever. But I was like, wow, she did this with, you know, an art degree. Like, I always thought you had to be a lawyer and had to have all this stuff. And then you kind of zoom out and you look who's serving and you're like, that makes sense that you don't. But like, you hold these people kind of to this high standard of like, they have all this depth of knowledge and, you know, all these things. And you're like, they're just kind of the same as you and me, you know, but like have a passion for this and a drive, and they're going to do the thing. You know, you're good with relationships. You have a little spite in you, so you're willing to put up the fight. I mean, hardworking, like those are the qualities that you need, right? And it's not just being a lawyer and graduating law school.
Exactly. And women have those best qualities.
Yeah, for sure. It's so funny. Like, I see these funny TikTok videos or whatever that say, you know, why aren't women leading? Men can't even plan a party. You know, they can't even plan a vacation. Why are they planning anything? You know, we give it to the women who can multitask and get things done with, you know, doing 10 other things.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's pretty funny.
So then I know, you know, running forces you to talk more openly about money. How much is raised, spent, needed, all these things. Of course, as you know, women in many ways are taught to avoid the conversation of money. And so how did this kind of experience change your relationship with money, confidence, power, all of those different things?
Yeah, that has always been interesting because, of course, yes, we were never taught to talk about money at all. And I was not comfortable talking about money up until I ran for office, and then that's all you talk about as a candidate, you know? So it has really allowed me to feel a little bit more open and comfortable talking about money and talking about how much you raised or how much you have to spend, you know, how much something costs, whatever, and openly talking about it because you have to defend how much money you need and how much money you have to spend as a candidate. And then, of course, all the state reps, when we get together from, you know, there's a lot of different conferences that we go to where it's state reps from across the United States. And we play a fun game of where are you from and how much money do you make? Because we openly talk about it all the time because each state is completely different. We don't make the same. And so each state is completely different. And we always ask, you know, how long do your sessions go as well? Because that's completely different too. So we always, I mean, every table I sit at, that question comes up once, and then you'll just see a round robin of people say their state, how much they make. And then it's something that a lot of us have gotten used to. I don't think I would be comfortable ever talking about finances if I didn't run for office at some point, because it was very uncomfortable.
Is there pay inequity between the men and women in the same positions?
No, so this is the sad thing too. This is probably the first time that's been equal pay.
Wow. Yeah, I was wondering.
So we all make the same. We all make the same salary. We have a per diem as well. And then the mileage is different because it depends on where you're from.
So, as the first Asian American woman elected to Missouri, how does that feel for you, being the first Asian American woman from your experience in, I think you said, the grocery store, and how someone spoke to you then? How do you show up now, and how do you see yourself in this position? Because it's kind of like you made it in the way that you are representing them now, those people in the grocery store for the most part, right?
Definitely. Definitely. So we didn't know that I was going to be the first Asian American woman to be elected. We had no idea up until probably halfway through the campaign. And then somebody made a comment about it. We did some research. We're like, oh, it didn't even dawn on us. I got elected at a time where it was the pandemic and it was a lot of Asian hate that was happening. I think that I was elected at the perfect time because during my first year here as a freshman with your mask on, half the building's not wearing masks. We're having the pandemic COVID vaccine fight. You know, the insurrection's happening, things like that. So it was great times. We had a representative on the other side of the aisle who was also a freshman, who continued to scream about the China virus whenever we were talking about COVID or vaccines, and it was constantly the China virus. I knew that this rep has introduced himself as the farthest of the far right. So, in my opinion, I went to my leadership at the time because I'm like, this has got to stop. This is the fourth time he's done it that I know of. We all boo and whatever, and a lot of us are upset about it. But I'm like, what can I do? You know? And there was a few things I could do. I could point of order him, which would make him halt if I was on the floor, but that would be me doing it. It's not always going to work. I could file a charge if I want to. So what I did was I did an HR complaint, and then I did a press release stating why I did an HR complaint against this rep. And the HR complaint was mainly, it wasn't to apologize publicly, it wasn't to resign. It was literally just, these were the reasons why you need to stop your language because it hurts people to look like me. This is the people's house. If anybody who was of Asian descent who came into this building and heard China virus being screamed on the floor, they would feel attacked, and nobody should feel attacked in their own home. So because of that, I started getting death threats, mainly from his district. So we got death threats for probably about 3 years, off and on. I would say the other side also thought that I was exaggerating or being too sensitive, or this was about me, all those words. And then a week after I did this, the Atlanta shootings happened at the massage parlor. And when that happened, a lot of the people on the other side came to me and said, we didn't know. Like I understand now. But looking back even, you know, and talking to my own caucus, you know, they were upset about it, but they probably wouldn't have gone to the means that I did just because, you know, I think it takes, you know, representation matters. And I think it takes a lot of representation for somebody like me to stand up and say, this is not right, this is not okay, because, you know, I am the only Asian American woman here. At that time, we did have a half Asian, half Black representative that was on the Democratic side as well. And then, of course, our speaker, Jonathan Patterson, is of Asian descent on the other side as well. But nobody was really going to chime in. So that was one that I believe I had to push. So representation matters on why we do this a lot of the times. I don't think anybody from my caucus would have gone as hard as I did on this issue, mainly because, I mean, they weren't Asian. We all hated it, but I think it took somebody who is being really affected by it to say, hey, this is not going to happen and I'm going to do something about it.
Do you have any words of wisdom if any other non-white woman is thinking about running? And to me, I think Missouri, out of all the places, Missouri, it's so red. What words of wisdom would you give?
I would say if any woman wants to run, they should. And especially any minority woman wants to run, please do. We need more women in office. If you look around, even the women on the other side of the aisle, we are extremely hard workers. And just like you say, we multitask. We know how to multitask many things at the same time. And it's not an issue. We're the ones who can organize as well. So, when we go and have our bill hearings and everything else, you can tell that we're the ones that can really work. We work the floor, we work the committee rooms. So we definitely need more women in office. We often laughed on the Dem side. There's way more women, of course, than the Republican side. And the Republican women at one point, the new freshmen, were looking at our side and they're like, oh my God, you guys just have so many women over there. And we're like, you can come over anytime you want. We can have conversations. You can come over anytime you want. You can switch parties.
There you go. We're talking to you at a very critical time right now, right? The nation is so upset and angry and sad and concerned, and people are just kind of stopped dead in their tracks. They don't know what to do. They don't know should I go on with my daily life when all of this is happening around me? How do I make sense of it? Why isn't somebody stepping up and taking control? People are protesting and you're wondering, yes, I love to see the masses of people out there, but does it move the needle? Call your Congress people. And, I'm in Illinois, so I do call, but we're all aligned here. So what do you suggest, Emily? What are you saying to your constituents around how do we manage in this time of chaos like we've never seen before?
I would say first and foremost, please take care of your own mental health first, because it's extremely overwhelming. It's really hard to watch a lot of the videos. It's hard on people's mental health. So I would say first and foremost, take time for yourself to make sure that you are okay. Get involved, of course. Protests are great. I love them. I love the rallies, but at the same time, I would say that Missouri is a red state, but we're also a non-voting state, and that's the issue. If we would vote in elections, we could definitely flip the state. But the issue is a lot of the districts have extremely low voting turnouts, and that's a problem. So I would also tell folks, those rallies are great, but at the same time, we're in an election year. You could either stand at those rallies and scream at the top of your lungs, and that's your mental health strategy as well, do it. But at the same time, you could also help and volunteer for candidates that need help. You have to think of a candidate as almost like a small business or a nonprofit, I guess. Let's call it a nonprofit, because they need volunteers. They need volunteers for a lot of different things. We're going to talk about door knocking and things like that and events. They're going to need all of the help that they can get. So I would suggest finding candidates. And of course, also, I always say this, District 24, District 25, Midtown, downtown area of KC, Plaza, Brookside area, they're going to be fine. They're blue seats. Look outwards. Look at the seats that we need to flip. Look in the suburban areas. Look in places like Independence, Missouri. Look at those places where we can flip the needle and start helping that way.
I love that idea of how it is going to be up for election. So we have to get out there and have boots on the ground in that way. How do you recommend kind of people getting connected in that area? Just kind of searching online. I know there's the UCLA.
Of course, you can reach out to me. I'm more than happy to help and assist in any way I can to navigate you. Mohouse Dems is also a place for just state reps in Missouri. That's a good area of resource. You have the minority leader, if we're talking about KC, you have the minority leader that lives in KC, Ashley Ani. She lives in Platte County. So you have a lot of tools necessary. I would say the biggest for folks, reach out to your local elected officials. We will get coffee with you. We will meet up with you. We will add you to our newsletter or campaigns, and you will get information from us that way. But I have a ton of coffee meetings when I get back home, and it's constituents want to sit down, they want to talk. And then during that time, I can kind of figure out where they want to help, because door knocking's not for everybody. They get scared. I get it. But there's other ways you can get involved as well. And then I can pinpoint you to a lot of the candidates that really need focus.
How do you do it all in a day, Emily? Aren't you exhausted?
It's a lot of coffee. It's a lot of coffee.
I bet.
You need the coffees now.
I'm just like, everything that you do, and then you're like, just talk to me. Like, ew, I feel like I should talk to your assistant or something. You're a busy woman.
We have amazing staff. Our staff is the bread and butter that keeps everything glued. So we have amazing staff. My legislative assistant, Allie, she's absolutely amazing. She keeps me going. She makes sure my calendar's all good. But she also helps a lot with constituent outreach and services and making sure that we're helping District 24 when I can't be available at that moment. I think also this is why I enjoy being the public servant, because your day-to-day is so different. And I think that's what I really enjoy. It took me a minute to get. You have to flip your mind very quickly, especially when you are the elected official. There's times where I have to flip my brain from talking about the anti-LGBTQIA legislation that continues to go through this building, legislation to, let's say, VLTs, which video lottery terminals, and I have to flip it very quickly. And sometimes I gotta take a second because your mind has to get there. But I like the fast-paced motion of everything like that. So I love this, which I also say I'm a glutton for punishment too.
Well, Emily, I think this has been an amazing conversation. There is a question that we like to ask everybody on our podcast. So, looking at your entire journey from being, adopted to becoming an elected official, what does financial freedom mean to you now?
That's a really good question. So I'll be very honest. This is also me coming from a place where I'm going through a divorce too, and being completely dependent on myself for the first time in a very long time. So it's been exhilarating, I would say. I've become this budget nerd for my own personal finances. I've figured out different ways to pay off debt, to make sure that debt's paid off quicker, or just looking at different means that I have for myself. So it's been really interesting journey for me, because the past 3 years I've been separated and completely on my own. I'm not going to lie, it was scary at first. It's me. I don't have anybody really to fall back on if I get in a crunch or anything like that. But it's been absolutely amazing, and I truly love it.
Yeah, there's life on the other side, and sometimes it's the best place to be, right? This has been fantastic. I'm honored to have spent this time with you, Emily.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming on. We're excited to get this message out and excited for all our listeners to just take some more action in their community. I think this is just a great story of we can all jump in and do something, and just finding your spot of what that something is. So thank you, Emily, for coming on today and sharing your story. And we're excited to get you voted in for the next election. You've been listening to Women in Money, the shit we don't talk about. Now it's time to take what you've learned and make bold moves towards financial independence. Stay in the know by joining our newsletter for exclusive tools, resources, and updates that keep you financially fearless. Head to pursestrings.co and sign up today. Need a financial professional who gets it? Turn to PurseStrings' curated directory, your go-to resource for financial experts who know how to put you first. Love this episode? Leave us a review and help us empower even more women to own their financial power. Until next time, be financially fearless.